de nouvelles en entrant.
What if a young captain from a forgotten corner of Africa explodes onto the world stage? A man hailed across the continent as its new hope, but also sparking fear in global capitals. What if he echoes the fire of Thomas Sankara, promising a true revolution, and even draws chilling comparisons to Gaddafi's audacious defiance? And why are the world powers, France, Russia, the US, now watching his every move, wondering if Africa is truly turning a page or heading into a dangerous new chapter? This isn't idle talk, this is happening. This is Ibrahim Traore's moment, and it could define Africa's entire future. So who is this Ibrahim Traore, hailed by African people as their new leader? On September 30th, 2022, 37-year-old Captain Ibrahim Traore walked into power. He stood among loyal troops, announced the fall of the interim government, but rushed from coup leader into national figure when the streets of Ouagadougou chanted his name. Traore, in fatigues and a red beret, began immediately reshaping the narrative, not as a dictator, but as a soldier of the people. A week later, he declared himself interim president, saying, "The mantle of Sankara guides us." And African youth heard something familiar. Weekly rallies sprang up, not just in Burkina Faso, but student gatherings in Dakar, Lagos, Nairobi. Everywhere Africa's downtowns pulsed with talk of revolution. But before that day arrived, Traore was not street-trained or political. He was a career officer, trained in artillery and military strategy. Traore's rise was a crossroads of legitimacy and disruption. Some contested claims suggest that as interim president, he cut the salary of MPs, doubled pay for low-income workers. It is also claimed that he cancelled all IMF and World Bank loans. However, a visit to IMF's official website suggests otherwise. He renamed all regions bearing French names to native local names to echo Sankara's legacy and launched youth-driven agro-industrial projects. By 2023, gold export revenues rose 15%. Roads expanded. Factories popped up. These were real deliverables. To aging generals in Paris and Washington, it looked like revolution. To Western diplomats, it smelled like military populism. To Africa's youth, it felt like hope. Traore declared the exit from French security arrangements. In January 2023, he expelled French troops, shuttered RFI and France 24's offices, and quit the G5 Sahel coalition. He said bluntly, "Burkina's destiny is ours to write." Foreign media yawned, but across social media, users across Africa voiced strong support. It wasn't just Burkina, nearly a dozen African street movements called for similar anti-colonial stances. The strong resonance Traore has found across Africa brings with it both admiration and deep concern, especially when considering the fates of previous anti-Western African leaders. Thomas Sankara, often called Africa's Che Guevara, served as the president of Burkina Faso from 1983 until his assassination in 1987. A Marxist and Pan-Africanist revolutionary, Sankara was renowned for his anti-imperialist stance, rejecting foreign aid and IMF World Bank loans, promoting self-sufficiency, and implementing progressive social reforms. He was ultimately assassinated by Blaise Compaoré-led forces in 1987. The consensus among many analysts and a significant portion of the African public is that his defiance of Western economic and political norms made him a target. Muammar Gaddafi, who ruled Libya from 1969 to 2011, was another figure who openly defied Western powers and championed Pan-Africanism. He closed Western military bases, nationalized foreign oil interests, and famously pushed for African unity and a common African currency backed by gold, directly challenging Western financial systems. His regime was accused of sponsoring terrorism and human rights abuses, which were used to justify intervention. Gaddafi was overthrown and killed during the 2011 Libyan civil war. Ibrahim Traore's rule in Burkina Faso, marked by his expulsion of French troops, rejection of Western financial institutions, and pursuit of alternative alliances like with Russia and China, eerily echoes the anti-Western rhetoric and actions of both Sankara and Gaddafi. He called IMF debt a chain, not a lifeline. He criticized Western sanctions on Zimbabwe as hypocrisy. He met Putin in Moscow, Sudan's general in Khartoum, China's delegates in Beijing. Everywhere he carried the same message: Africa will no longer kneel. The style was revolutionary without insurgency, yet it echoed Europe's fears of a second Gaddafi, bold, emergent, anti-West. This resemblance sparks fears for his future, as many in Africa and beyond worry that he might suffer a similar fate. Traore himself has claimed to have foiled multiple assassination and coup attempts, suggesting that external forces might indeed be working to destabilize his government, much like the alleged actions taken against his predecessors who dared to challenge the global order. But Traore faces certain challenges. Insurgent attacks across Burkina's north, notably in Udalan and Yaga, rose from under 3,000 deaths in 2021 to over 7,200 in 2024. 2 million people are displaced. Traore launched Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, 100,000 burly, unpaid, trained irregulars who man checkpoints around Ouagadougou and combat extremist cells. Human rights NGOs accuse the group of forced conscriptions, vigilante justice, and summary detentions. Journalists say their phones are tapped. Activists claim meeting bans. Traore accepts criticism but argues, "Security is not a game. We cannot be free until we are safe." Rivals say he isn't democratic. He's delayed elections until 2029, promised a parts of country first, then elections, but no date. That's led to international censure from Paris, Washington, Brussels, and even his close allies in ECOWAS. Diplomatic cables leaked show concern. This is not Reuters or Politico opinion, it's strategic fear. That fear fueled a scramble into his circle. Russia's Wagner-linked personnel arrived. Maybe 400 fighters came under the pretext of training. Russian entities now control 85% of newly nationalized gold ventures. China signed infrastructure deals. Western embassies point to this and whistle Putin influence, not Traore's ideology, as intent. Meanwhile, inside Burkina, views are split. Popular surveys show 2/3 believe military rule can be acceptable if civilians fail, but that support collapses when freedom rolls back. Traore is praised for shifting power into local municipalities. He's also blamed for shuttering opposition parties. Pictures circulate of rallies and others of journalists behind bars. Africa's broader reaction has been striking. In Malawi, Zambia, Senegal, youth-led protests demanded similar independence from Western ties. South Africa's daily The Citizen asked if Traore is the future of Pan-African leadership. In Egypt, analysts mutedly spoke of caution. In Algeria, protests against French ties spiked. But, just like Sankara and Gaddafi before him, Traore's anti-West stance sparked whispers of Western conspiracies. Sankara was assassinated, Gaddafi killed. Traore is under constant surveillance. A deliberate, low-flying drone reportedly crossed Burkina's airspace in 2024. US denies involvement. Locals call it intimidation. Media outlets say he's been briefed that they're planning his removal. And here's the crucial paradox. His rise is democratic in spirit, again, praised by the youth, but authoritarian in form. He claims to restore democracy, yet holds public loyalty through military structures. Democracy isn't just elections, it's institutions, the very ones now controlled or sidelined. His transformation in power echoes two patterns. First, Sankara's revolutionary socialism cuts on poverty, national pride, anti-imperialism. Second, Gaddafi's regional ambition, a charismatic head of state who calls Africa's leaders rivaling the West with diplomatic flair. But Traore has seen the costs. He's isolated himself from key Western partners, invited scrutiny, and centralized power quickly. At the heart of it is a gamble. Traore bets Africa wants its voice, not in whispers or bailout checks, but in bold action. The economic growth, GDP from 18.8 billion to 22.1 billion, can sustain momentum. Continued security is necessary to hold power. Cooperation agreements with Russia and China can buffer against sanctions. Traore knows this. He said, "We will walk alone, but not be alone." Ibrahim Traore stands at a crossroads. He could become the modern Sankara, delivering progress with dignity, building a republic out of revolution. Or the second coming of Gaddafi, charismatic at first, then caught in authoritarian collapse. But the path ahead is not determined. Only by how he governs can he claim revolution. So, after everything you've seen, what do you think? Is Ibrahim Traore the blueprint for a stronger, truly independent Africa? Or does his rise lead down a more dangerous path? This isn't just a story about one man. It's about Africa's future. As Ibrahim Traore stands on this global stage, we have to ask, if more leaders like him emerge, will Africa finally break free, or will it only become more fractured? When independence is fought for with tanks, what becomes of democracy? Ibrahim Traore might be Africa's new leader. But is he the answer the continent desperately needs, or a sign of deeper trouble to come? The answers will shape everything. The answers will shape not just Burkina Faso, but the soul of the whole Africa.